What's up? All right, let's talk about kidney physiology in this one. Physiology means function, so we're going to talk through kind of how the kidney does some of the things that it do for us. You know? All right, so we're going to draw our little unit of filtration of the kidney, which is, of course, the glomerulus. We got all these capillaries coming up in here. Boop, 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 boop. And coming out. All right. What comes next? We got our proximal convoluted tubule. And then we go down into the descending loop of Henle. And then we come up into the ascending loop of Henle, and then it comes around. And I kind of went too far over, so I'm going to fix that. Then we got a distal convoluted tubule, and then it comes back over. We'll zoom out just so I make this thicker now. Into our collection duct. Boom. All right, so what is going on here? Get out of here. All right, well, like I said, we have blood filtering out here. We'll make it in pink. So the blood filters out of the capillary, and then it goes down this tubule, right? Like so. Choo, choo, choo. And it comes around, and in this tubule, what is actually happening is one major thing. And the most important thing is that sodium is being actively pumped out. Actively pumped out. So there's ATP being used. That's what that means. ATP is used to pump it through the cells of that tubule back into this, it's called interstitial space. And then it will be reabsorbed by, remember, these blood vessels, by the bloodstream. We'll go back into that network, it's up here, of capillaries right around the tubule, right? So it'll go out into this, it gets pumped out here, and then it's in the interstitial space of the kidney, up here in the cortex of the kidney, and then it's going to go back into the bloodstream. And then it'll go, and then come back and go back into the heart and all that stuff. Okay? If sodium's pumped out, it's positive. This means that chloride ions, Cl minus, is just going to kind of follow it. Okay? And it'll be reabsorbed. And if you're pumping out salts that are charged, this means that water is also going to follow them too. So these are passive diffusion. So water is also going to follow them as well. And some of the water will also, guess what? Be reabsorbed, right? And these two are, let's do it like this, passive diffusion. Pretty cool. Okay? So that's kind of what's happening up here. And then the blood is going to continue to come around. I'm sorry, not the blood. The filtrate is what it's called now. So filtrate's going to continue to come around, right? Boo, boo, boo. That process is going to continue to happen through here. Until it gets to here, and then salt can't really leave here anymore. But it's going to, the filtrate's going to continue. And let's talk about what happens here again. Up here, what's happening in the ascending loop of Henle is the same process, and there's a lot of salt. Na plus is actively pumped out. And I mean, and a lot of it. It's actively pumped out. I'm going to put that a lot. Okay. Not sure how I want to do this. Let me do it like this. Okay, it's active. So there's a ton of this. It's a lot. Okay, and that kind of continues up through here. Boom, boom, boom. It's a lot of Na getting pumped out. Okay, so what that results in is like it being salty, very salty, and then super salty. Super salty down here at the bottom. Very salty, and then kind of salty. Right? Because there's just a lot of sodium getting pumped out here. And there's a lot of sodium here. So a lot gets pumped out. Then there's less sodium, less gets pumped out. And then there's less sodium, so less gets pumped out. But it's still a lot. Okay? So it leads to like a high salt concentration. Higher salt concentration, the lower we go. Higher salt concentration. Okay? Remember that water follows salt. So this part here is permeable to water. This part here is permeable to salt. And we would have chlorine coming out here too, because it's going to follow the sodium. So that means water is also going to be coming out here. Boom. So we'll have H2O leaving here. And this is concentrating the urine. H2O. H2O. Okay. All right, and chlorine will also be leaving here. Let's see. I don't want to make it too confusing. I'll just put it up here. CO minus will also be leaving. Okay? So, this part here is permeable to water. This part is actively pumping out salt to allow this water to come out and chase it. Okay? And we'll say like, this is pumping out. Change the verbiage there a little bit actually. Like that. Pumping out some, a lot, right? And like, as this goes up, this is just more and more, the filtrate in the tube is more and more salty. Or I'm sorry, it's more, it has less and less salt in it because the salt is being pumped out. Okay, then there's actually more salt that's pumped out all along this. Oops. Even more salt is pumped out up here, up at this top part here. And so we have a lot of more salt is pumped out. A lot of water now in this distal tubule. It's actively pumped out. Okay, and so let's continue our little arrows here. So our filtrate has a lot of water in it because a lot of the salt has been pumped out. So then when our Filtrate reaches the collection duct. The body makes a choice. Do we need to conserve water or not? If we do need to conserve water, we're going to want to save this water. Some of this water, right, is going to then, especially when it gets down here to this really salty environment down here, the water is going to leave, right? It's going to follow that salt, just like it did over here. Okay, and I know this stuff can be confusing, right? Does it need to conserve water or not? All right, and then there's a very special hormone that is involved in this. So we learned way back in the cellular topic or about diffusion that, let's go actually back to it just so you can see how connected this is. If we go back to membrane transport and diffusion, I know I got this somewhere, right here. Water can slip right through membranes, okay? But it's a polar molecule. It's not going to happen super efficiently, but it certainly can. But we can also speed up. We could put a little channel in the membrane that's perfectly sized for water that will allow water to slip right through that membrane super quick. So along this tubule, we can also have things called aquaporins. These are called aquaporins. And they're channels, tubes in the membrane that allow water to pass through them super easy. Okay, they're perfectly sized for the water. They allow water to pass right through them. It's pretty cool. I love these guys. They're really beautiful, actually. Okay, so one of the ways, if we have a lot of aquaporins here, what that's going to result in is a lot of water being reabsorbed by your blood system. So many aquaporins in the collection duct will allow your body to reabsorb a lot of water. And what will this result in? This will result in extremely concentrated urine, salty urine, because your body's going to be holding on to this water, right? Because this will be reabsorbed by your capillaries, by your cardiovascular system, right? So you'll have extremely concentrated urine. This will result, I'll put it down here, resulting in concentrated urine. Pretty cool, right? Because the water can leave the collection duct, be reabsorbed by your bloodstream before it comes down the collection duct and enters the renal pelvis, right? Because if it goes down this collection duct, it goes to the renal pelvis, and that renal pelvis goes to your ureter, and it goes to the bladder, and then you lose that water from your body. So if you put a bunch of little holes in your collection duct, you perforate it with these aquaporins, which are perfectly sized for the water molecule, then bang. Water can slip out of the collection duct right before you pee it out or put it in your bladder, and you save it. All right, and this is controlled. This is really fascinating. So I'll write this in this blue. Aquaporins are inserted into the membrane of the collection duct when a hormone is present. So the cells listen for this hormone, this signal, and when this hormone is present, they put in a lot of these pores. This hormone is called anti-diuretic hormone. Anti-diuretic. A diuretic makes you pee. And this is an anti-diuretic hormone, or ADH. ADH. And this is made, it's made in your hypothalamus. Remember that part of your brain. Made in your hypothalamus. And secreted, it's stored and secreted in your pituitary. Pituitary. Secreted. Secreted. Okay, let's go back to the brain and talk about that. Hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is right here, and it secretes. It's a homeostasis center, keeps you in balance, regulates your heart rate, blood pressure. Didn't talk about that, but your kidney regulates blood pressure because it controls the amount of liquid in your cardiovascular system. So if you're like bleeding actively and you're losing blood pressure, your kidney's going to hold on to water. It's going to get rid of aquaporins so that it holds on to as much water. Or I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It's going to dump aquaporins into those collection ducts. All right, so our hypothalamus makes this antidiuretic hormone right there. I said it, antidiuretic hormone. And then they're stored down here in this pituitary gland. And that will release, if blood pressure drops too low, let's say, it'll release antidiuretic hormone. Okay, a fascinating thing about this, if you've ever drank alcohol, I don't recommend it, but if you ever do, treat it like a little science experiment. All right, this is pretty interesting. We'll make it green because it actually makes you pee more. When you drink alcohol, it disrupts your hypothalamus. Disrupts a lot of things. For example, your hippocampus, your ability to kind of make memories, and your cerebellum, your inner ear, your balance. It disrupts a lot of things. Your ability to kind of inhibit ill behavior. Most crimes and murders are in association with alcohol or some other drug that reduces your inhibitions. It's crazy that it's a legal drug, but it is. So when you drink alcohol, it disrupts your hypothalamus's ability to regulate ADH, antidiuretic hormone. So antidiuretic hormone will never reach your kidneys. Okay? So if you have no diuretic hormone, here you have no aquaporins, which means that a large amount, I don't want it to be quite that big. No diuretic hormone means you lose tons of water and have dilute urine. So you're dehydrating yourself. And that actually makes sense because you've just drank a liquid poison. And so your body, in a way, it's trying to get rid of that poison so that it's washed from your body. So we might as well urinate a lot to get rid of as much of it as possible. Or, why is that not letting me type? Hormone. Pretty fascinating stuff. So it's not just the fact that when you drink a lot, you have to then urinate a lot because you drank a lot of fluid. It's because you've now disrupted your brain's ability to hold on to liquids. And so you urinate a lot. Will never reach your kidneys. And you will have a large volume of dilute urine. Note, and note if you ever do drink, look at that. You'll have like very clear urine. It's very, very, very fascinating. Very interesting. Okay, so that's another little addition. Let's go back up here because I just kind of not thought about that. Yeah, this part, pH levels, it also regulates your blood pressure. We're not going to talk about that in detail either, but you can kind of see how it does that. There's a whole nother angiotensin and renin hormone system that's involved too, but this antidiuretic hormone is one way that your blood pressure is regulated. Okay, so we talked about salt levels, so the amount of active pumping. How we just talked about water levels, which also is involved in your blood pressure. And we have this cool, interesting connection about how alcohol disrupts your brain's ability to secrete a hormone to install a tiny little pore, which helps you save water. If you disrupt that, then you have a large amount of dilute urine. Okay? Pretty cool. Got one more little lecture on this that I want to talk about is how we regulate our pH. And then we'll be out. All right, I'll see you in that one.